Welcome to Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a weekly podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and my co-host Dennis Simpson as we discuss the history, facts, people, places, events, lots more surrounding Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. Visit the website at hotspringsvillageinsideout.com. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live at kvre.com.
And we're back this week with Mr. Jason Temple, Dennis Simpson, Randy Cantrell. And Jason, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I hear so much better audio. We've made improvements today.
Man, I appreciate for letting us borrow this headset. Hopefully there won't be any feedback this time.
Borrow, it's yours, buddy. We're going to.
That's what I told him.
Yeah, that's our leash. We're going to come back. Hey, remember that headset we gave you? Buddy, we need to get you on here again, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's going to be any shortage of things in the next few months that we need to talk about. I might imagine there's going to be dozens, so we're happy to have you on with us again. Today, we're going to cover a couple of things. Number one, we just got through a snow event, as they would like to say, or a winter weather event. I want to come back and touch on that just a second. And then the other is we're going to talk about culverts, which how sexy and exciting can that be, huh? Right?
Yeah. The water's going to flow through the culvert or under the bridge, one way or another.
One of the two. Well, so just curious, what does it take to manage a winter weather event like this? And how much sand did you use and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, we used it all. Every cubic yard of sand that we had saved up, we used every bit of it. Gosh, it was nearly, it took 200 tons to refill it. So we used 200 tons of sand, several hundred pounds of salt, and we were worried about running out at the very end because that ice just seemed to hang on for days, would not melt.
Well, in the shady spots, yeah. I mean, it's just virtually impossible. It was 50 and 60 degrees and it wouldn't melt.
Yeah, it's in the shade. It's probably colder, So, when you got streets that are canopied by a lot of trees, man, that would just not melt. And ice is very difficult to blade off the road unless you get some sun on it and it starts to break that bond. Then you can sling it off pretty easy. So it was difficult for days. Even after we started doing our sanitation routes again, on the Monday following the ice storm, we still had to be very, very careful in a lot of areas and go around a few places.
So let me guess, you didn't want to have that new sanitation truck in the ditch, is what I'm hearing.
That's the POA's investment. We're not going to mess with that or endanger any of our staff.
Yeah.
Well, a year ago, it was much, much worse. So I guess we'll take it.
Yeah. What was a year ago, you had to hold your trash for 2 weeks before we got to it. And this week, everyone got their trash emptied in the first week, and they were back to their normal schedule last week, and we're on our third week this week, and things are going smoother and smoother and smoother, and less calls are coming in as folks start transitioning to the new program. We're still changing out the 64s to the 96s for the folks who got the 96 the first time. And as we get one, we'll change it out to the next person who needs one. And as you go along the way, we still have folks that say, you know what, I just go ahead and like to keep that 96. It's not a problem at all. And they'll be glad they got it, come Christmas time or the next time, or holidays when they got family here visiting and they got a big load of domestic waste that they want to get rid of. They can put it all in that big trash can.
Well, are people getting a clue that, if we wheeled the trash can out, the 96 out there, and we set 15 boxes around it, that those boxes are not in the trash can and they're probably not going to get picked up? Are they kind of buying a vowel?
They're starting to get that. This is the transition month. We're trying to get the word out that only trash that is in the POA trash can will get emptied. And we strongly encourage everyone to bag their trash because that'll keep your streets cleaner from anything flying out. And we've had a few incidences where people have wedged the trash in there so tight that even the mechanism will empty the top part of the trash can, but there'll be two bags that are wedged in the very bottom of it. So folks are really compacting the trash in those cans pretty tight, and they're using them. We're trying. I think as the more you use them, the slicker they'll get, and things will work smoother after.
How much is a second trash can? Just remind me.
It's only $9 more a month.
Hmm.
And so that just kind of covers our cost of the tipping. And we're already traveling to your house on the first fee, and the $9 covers the tipping costs, of us to have to haul it to the transfer station, and we have to pay them to dispose of your trash.
Yeah. So let me get this straight. So 200 tons
of sand.
Is that close to 4 million pounds, or am I a decimal off?
Well, a ton's about 3,000 pounds of sand. So 200 times 3,000, that's 600,000 pounds of sand out there, probably spread out all over the POA.
Holy cow. So I'm driving down my lovely little street, and they're on the sides of the roads, there's sand. And I'm thinking, we talk about the wear and tear, with the big trucks coming through and they're tearing up the road, and we should charge more and blah, 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 blah. I can't imagine that the sand is any good for the road either, or is that just a minor thing?
The sand will work its way off the roads or go into the cracks and stuff. And I guess in some instances, it kind of helps seal the cracks in the road a little bit. When we come through and crack seal, we're going to blow that out. So it makes it easy to blow it out and fill it in with rubber. That's more expansive a little bit. The thing is, you just want to keep the water from getting out into the cracks and freezing and breaking the road up a little bit. So it can be somewhat helpful.
How long does it take to replenish that supply that you exhausted?
We did it in one day. We bought 200 tons from Cooper Concrete, because it's kind of a coarser type sand. Yeah. And they had it in stock, so we're ready to go for the next winter storm. And
let's hope we don't need it.
Well, I hope that was it, because usually February has one. And Mother Nature's Mr. Winter's last swing had a winter storm here in the village, and it usually happens about now. So hopefully what we had was it. We'll see.
Yeah, it's looking like smooth sailing from here going out. Well, Randy, without further ado, unless you have another question,
go ahead.
We're going to talk about the sexy world of culverts, right? And actually, Jason, to recap for everybody, and for those of you that don't know, Jason is the engineer. What's your exact title? I'm sorry.
I'm the Director of Public Services.
Director of Public Services.
I'm an engineer by trade before I came here, but I'm a manager of people now.
And I encourage everybody who, if you didn't see our previous episode, Randy, where did he go to school again?
He's an Aggie.
Woo.
From Texas.
Listen, if you're in engineering, it's the school, right, Jason?
It is one of the great engineering schools in the United States, and it's not an easy one. It took me 6 years to get through it. It's a tough school.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, had no idea.
Yeah, but I can tell you, they've got a. I don't mean a formal fraternity, but I mean just the networking. I tell people this all the time, and Jason he can probably bear this out. I mean, people go to Harvard, and it's like, okay, it's not that the education may be all that great, but I mean, come on, you're going to be the people that you're going to meet, and you're going to know. I mean, everybody. Of course, I'm here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I mean, if you're an engineer and you went to A&M, I mean, the network of people, the network of other PEs, professional engineers, is it's tight, man. It's kind of an amazing. I'm rather envious of kind of the network that the A&M folks have.
You see the Texas A&M stickers on the back of trucks all over America. Of course, a lot. Texas is big enough to employ them all, but you got guys like me that get out of state and go work elsewhere. And University of Arkansas here in Arkansas is a great engineering school. I work with a lot of other engineers that went to school there, and they've got a great program there. I hear that University of Arkansas at Little Rock has a engineering program, and now Southern Arkansas University in my hometown, Magnolia, Arkansas, has got an engineering program down there. So, I mean, there's probably going to be quite a demand for engineers in the future, and the schools are ramping up to train them up.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about culverts just for a second. Part of the funding with the rate increase that we have was to take care of the streets. And I guess the principal thing we need to talk about is sleeving versus repairing. And by sleeving, I mean we slip a sleeve inside of a failing but existing culvert. Is that correct?
We repair culverts a couple different ways here in the village. One is just outright replacement. When the culvert has failed and you can't do any other option, You just have to dig it up and replace it. And we either replace it with a reinforced concrete pipe like we do on DeSoto, or my staff will use what they call a high density plastic pipe. There's two types of plastic pipes. You got polypropylene and polyethylene. Polyethylene is the black plastic corrugated black plastic pipe that you see. It's the cheaper pipe. Works pretty good. It doesn't won't corrode, won't rust. It'll live forever. It might catch on fire, but it will probably live forever. And then there's a little bit harder plastic pipe, the polypropylene, which is kind of like your medicine bottle. The polypropylene is like your plastic water bottle, pretty limber. And then the polypropylene is like your medicine container. It's kind of a harder plastic type pipe. And we have found that works a little bit better. It's a little bit more forgiving here in the village. And then, of course, under the streets, we'll backfill that with a cementatious sand material called flowable fill. So it fills, and that flowable fill is like concrete, but a very, very weak concrete. It's like a hard dirt clod when it sets up. So you can actually go back and dig it up fairly easily, but it gets hard enough that it doesn't settle. And, one of the things that we try to do is a better quality job here in the village. When we go and fix a culvert that was a bump, we're not trying to create another bump for folks to drive over. We're trying to do a good job there, get the culvert built back, and then finish off with a nice asphalt pavement on top of it. And,
well, I had excuse me for interrupting just for a sec. I had the pleasure of meeting with the forestry and the common property committee a few weeks ago. And one of the guys brought up an excellent point that most people don't recognize. And that is, the beautiful trees behind me, they will die of old age. And you go, the tree just dies. Yeah, it has a lifespan. What is the lifespan of a culvert? Are we replacing culverts that should have been done better? Is this just a better material, or do they just die of old age? Or how many trillions of cars go over them before they fail? Give me some background.
The majority of your culverts here in the village is what they call a corrugated metal pipe. It's a galvanized, twisted metal pipe. It's corrugated. It gives it its strength, and it's very thin metal. But it was the thing back in the 70s to even up to the 90s. It was the thing to use because it was cheap, strong. You put it in there pretty quick, and it lasts 30 years for the most part. If your soils or there are areas where your culvert that weren't corrosive, our soils here are a little bit corrosive. And so it has kind of accelerated some of the deterioration of the bottoms of these corrugated metal pipes. So you can look at a lot of these corrugated metal pipes, and they have a nice arch all the way around it till you get to the bottom, and that bottom flow line area is all brown and rusted out, maybe even gone. And it's just the native ground underneath it. And so that culvert has turned into an arch support versus a pipe. And that will hold up for a little bit. On the big culverts, we'll come in and concrete that bottom in, and then that makes it that gives life back to it, and everything does pretty good. But what happens a lot of times is as erosion happens out underneath that culvert, that top will start to settle. And then the road at the very top will settle, and you see bumps in the road. And when that's happening, things are moving at that point, and it's time to replace that culvert, or we should have replaced it just a couple of years or two before that. Well, that's kind of where you're at on the majority of your culverts here in the village. They're all 30 years old. Even if they were put back in the 90s, they're 30 years old or more and have ran out their lifespan. Now, changing out a culvert is not an easy project. Sometimes they're buried very deep, and they've got your water lines going over the top of it. You've got your sewer lines, and then it makes it really fun when you've got your three-phase electrical lines going over that, and a phone line, and maybe a fiber optic line there on the other side of it. So when we're out there fixing culverts, we got to be pretty careful about those existing utilities and protect them while we are almost like doing surgery through them, removing the dirt, exposing the culvert, pulling that culvert out, and then putting a new line underneath it, filling it back in nice and careful not to disturb anything. And then that's why we've gone to this flowable fill. You can just pour that in, and you can encase your existing utilities. And it's not hard to get back to them if you ever have to dig them out or do a replacement on the water or sewer lines. That's the story of fixing a culvert here when you have to replace it. Now, if we're lucky, we can catch these culverts while the bottom may be gone, but the structural integrity of the culvert is nice and round. It's got its full diameter, and there's no dips in it midway through there that kind of creates a squeeze spot. We can slip a new line in there. It's this black HDPE line, the polypropylene plastic pipe, and it has a better flow characteristics even with a smaller pipe than the larger corrugated metal pipe. So in some cases, it actually improves the flow through the pipe. The hard part is getting the water in the pipe. And so we have to check a few hydraulic checks on that to make sure we've got what we call inlet control, where the water will back up a little bit in front of the pipe and push its way in, but not go over the road. As long as those conditions work, that replacement works really good. And of course, once the water gets in the pipe, it shoots right through faster than it did before on the corrugated metal pipe. And then we concrete the space between that black passy pipe and the existing corrugated metal pipe. So you have black passy pipe sandwiched with concrete, and then you have the old corrugated metal pipe around it. And that fully restores the integrity of that. Plus, you don't have to disturb the surface. The traffic can keep going, and you're fixing that pipe without any traffic control hardly. There's the folks are driving over the top of it while we're fixing it down below at a fraction of the cost, about 1/3 the cost of replacing these big pipes or having to dig up DeSoto Boulevard. If you have to dig it up, that's $80,000 to $150,000 per pipe. If you that's what they cost. If you can slip line it, man, that's $30,000.
And the life expectancy of that repaired
will be forever.
Okay.
It should be forever. One and done. We'll never have to fix that again, hopefully.
And I can see because I've seen the metal pipes that you're talking about. I mean, Randy, when we walk the DeSoto Trail, as you get up past Deborah's and you're walking that way, you can look over and see these monster. I mean, we're talking 5 and 6 foot tall tubes of corrugated metal. And I look at the bottom and I think the bottom of that is always in water. In the dead of the summer, there's still water going through there. And I'm thinking that's corrosive, it's rusting, it's whatever. Jason, I want you to take a little trip with me just for a moment in your mind. We're coming down Strawberry 3000 and we T-bone into Highway 7 right there at the home plate. And you're going to turn right just across from the baseball field. And if you drive a low convertible like mine, you cannot avoid going through a huge ditch right there. Mm-hmm. And the county of Garland apparently just keeps putting asphalt on the top of that. And when we started talking about culverts, I realized, I thought, why is there a dip in? Oh.
Is it sinking over the culverts collapsing underneath it?
Well, not only is it sinking, but now I realize since we've been doing these shows, since the last show and we're putting this together, Diane and I come back that way once a week. We come down Strawberry 3000. And when I turn that way, I think I literally have to try and drive over the humps because I don't have a lot of clearance. But then I realize on either side of that ditch, either side of that culvert, there's piles of gravel because it's not draining well either, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's completely failing. And I'm trying to get the picture. So you're saying you can replace a big culvert, and you're saying $30,000. This is like one of the culverts on DeSoto, a big one.
Yeah, most of the time, 48-inch diameter or less is kind of what we work with on that. Because if at 48-inch, which is common on DeSoto, we'll come back in with a 36 or 42-inch pipe, just depending on how good the existing pipe is. Yeah, it'll be $25,000 to $35,000.
As opposed to upwards of 100 to 150.
It could be anywhere from 80 to 150,000. Just depends on how deep it is. And a lot of these culverts here on DeSoto are pretty deep. You got everything's kind of built up. They're pretty deep, or they're shallow on one end and really deep on the other end.
Or hanging off in the air on the other
downhill, and the culvert got laid according to the original hillside. Because a lot of times, one of the rules you learn in engineering is, where there was a ditch and you want to put a road over it, you put the culvert in that ditch. Don't try to move the ditch. Don't try to move the creek, because Mother Nature will come right back where it was and blow a hole in your road where she wanted that creek to begin with in the first place. So you got to work with her on that. You got to stick it right there and stay right with her slope.
What does the priority list look like as far as the jobs that these culverts that you have to do some repair or replacement of?
Well, we're still focused on DeSoto Boulevard for this year. We have over 4,000 culverts, and I just kind of went through my list here a little bit earlier today to see what kind of progress we had. And let me just kind of explain something. We rated these culverts back in a couple of years ago on 5 conditions. Condition 1, it's failing, needs to be replaced immediately. Condition 2, starting to fail, but got a little bit of time, a little bit. Condition 3, we need to start planning for that one to be replaced in the next couple of years. And one of the things we see happen is conditions 2 and 3s can ramp up to a 1 right after a big rainstorm. Sometimes the next rainstorm could be the one that knocks out, the sub base out of this culvert, and now it's a condition 1 because it's starting to move. Condition 4 is just maybe needs to be cleaned out, and condition 5 has been replaced, brand new, fine and perfect. And so we have on our condition 1s remaining on our list 159 condition 1 culverts here in the village, spread out all throughout the village. We've got 1,128 condition 2 culverts, 270 condition 3, 956 condition 4s, and 1,450 condition 5s. And that's where you want them all to be, is condition 5s. They're been replaced or they're in great shape. And so those numbers are starting to migrate up a little bit. We've knocked some out of the condition 1s, but like I said, I got over 1,000 in condition 2 that could change to condition 1s at any time in the game here. And so there's about 10 culverts here on DeSoto Boulevard that are still condition 1. Again, they're probably pretty deep and everything. You don't see anything going on the surface, but the pipe is needing to be replaced or slip lined. And so we're looking at those culverts for this year's budget, and we're putting together a bid package for that to go out for bids for those. And then on the other culverts throughout the village, we'll try to use our staff to finish those out. Our staff can do, they're pretty quick with some of the smaller culverts, the 24, the 36 inches, the 18-inch culverts. They can knock them out in about a week. They can dig those up, replace them with new pipe and put it back in there, flowable fill, and have them asphalted, within a couple of weeks of that culvert being done. I think they're pretty efficient with that. We're going to be kind of comparing that operation to doing a very large 3 multi-year contract on culverts. The only way you're going to catch up with this is to go do a big contract. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at is I'm meeting with an engineer on a Friday to see what it would be like if we were to package up multi-years worth of culverts for a multi-year contract. That way your contractor's got a big project spread out over multiple years. So that makes him feel good. I got good business for 3 years, and maybe we can get some discounted bulk pricing and go at it from there. Now, when I do multi-year contracts, they're always renewable on an annual basis. If the contractor doesn't work out, we can terminate that contract at any time. But if he does a great job and we'd like to continue working with that contractor, we already have the bid prices for the next future work. We'll renew that contract on an annual basis. And that's one of the things we're trying to set up here with the new board, and to get more long-range planning, more strategic bidding going on here in the village. And now with the assessments passing, we've got the more funds to do that kind of work. Same thing on the roads. We're going to try to look at all the roads on a multi-year process and try to bid these things out in larger packages. The larger the project, the bigger contractors get interested at that point, start coming in. You get those big contractor discounted prices, where they've got all this stuff warehoused, they've bought it, at a pretty good price. So we're looking at that.
What kind of number or what kind of percentage would you say the bigger culverts are in your 1 and 2 category? I mean, the ones that are beyond the scope and scale of what your staff can do or would normally do.
Again, our staff would probably do anything 36 inch or less. The ones that are bigger than that, depending where they're located, if they're on DeSoto Boulevard, I'm gonna get a contractor to come in and fix those. If they're bigger than that elsewhere, it just depends on the site. You'd be surprised what our staff can do. They did Levantino. That was 2 big multi-culverts. They're like 3 and 5 barrels. That means 3 pipes or 5 pipes crossing the road all in one spot. So it was a pretty big excavation. They did that just fine, with our own in-house staff. So it just kind of depends on the complexity and the depth. I don't like our staff working in really deep areas. I'd rather have a contractor who will bench that back right and use the proper trench protection, things like that they have. They have the equipment for that better than we do.
And I'm just assuming that the terrain of the village makes all this complicated. I mean, because some of these watersheds carry a tremendous amount of water.
Oh yeah. On a hillside, you get a lot of water hitting the road at one point in time very quickly. So your culverts crossing the roads are probably they're a little bit bigger than culverts, in a city that's flatter, because the water gets there faster, quicker, and the volume of it is bigger in a shorter period of time. And so you design the culvert for your worst case scenario. And that's it's the time that the drop of water that landed the farthest away travels over land, through the creeks, down the road, in the ditch, to your culvert location. When that drop of water from the farthest location hits your culvert, that's when you got the maximum amount of water going through your culvert. And engineers can calculate that and calculate what the flow, the volume of the water is. And the bigger the flow, the bigger the diameter of your pipe. That's what dictates the size of it. So we can carry that water through the pipe and not over the road. When it goes over the road, that's when you can wash your road out or have some damage to it. And that's only happened here once here in the village since I've been here over in Barcelona, that we actually had a complete washout. But we've had several folks that, given the right storm, might blow it out someday. All it takes is something, that culvert to collapse or something to clog it up on the upper end of it, and you always got boulders rolling down these hills. And even if you have a decent culvert that's in good shape, a boulder or a large rock that comes and makes its way and clogs up the front end of that culvert, and then limbs and branches clog it up more, and pretty soon you got a dam. Now the water's going over the road, even if you got a good culvert. So you don't want to use small culverts here in the village. I encourage everyone, if you don't want your water going over your driveway, put a bigger culvert in. It can pass more. I get some heat all the time about folks want to put in the cheap 12-inch culvert. Well, okay, you can do that, but it's going to clog up and it's going to go over your road and might damage my road. And that's when when it damages the POA road, then you're wasting your own assessments on stuff like that. So that's the reason why most of your culverts here were well designed early on. The diameters I have not found a culvert that was not designed correctly and it was too small. They've all been either right exactly where I would have calculated or a little bit bigger. So that's good to know. Those engineers, Ernie Deaton, all those guys that were part of Cooper Engine, they did a good job designing the culverts, at least sizing them.
You took my word. I was going to say, so Ernie did a good job, right?
Oh yeah. Actually, I called Ernie this morning. I had a question about our lakes a little bit, and he gives me the background on everything. He's great. Well, great resource.
We're coming back around. He's getting a free headset too, by the way, because we're going to have to bug him too.
Okay. Well, he sounded fine over there.
He was hysterical too. It was a lot of fun. Randy, did you have anything to follow up with?
Not for today. I'll save mine for next time, Jason. Let you off the hook. He's a busy man. He's got stuff to do, man. He
is a busy man. He does have stuff to do, and I know he has an appointment coming up. We appreciate you giving us some time today, Jason. I will say, when we come back, I want to talk more about wastewater and water pickup and some other water flu things. I know that's let me ask this. Do you anticipate the culvert project 2 to 3 years ish?
Oh, longer than that.
Really?
That's a good 5-year plus project. I would say, to catch up on everything that we are of concern. Think about it. If the number 2s that we have a little bit of time. And so we might be able to spread that out over 10 years, but at any time they may bump up to the 1s. And right now we got 159 number 1s that we're going to try to catch up real quick. We'll spread that out over 3 years. That means you got to do 50 culverts a year just to catch up with the number 1s. And, our staff can do that. I mean, our staff can do that in-house, possibly, depending on the culvert. But you blend the staff with a contractor going after the real hard ones. there's a good chance in 3 years we could be caught up on our number ones, and hopefully the number twos haven't jumped into number ones in the meantime. And that's kind of about the rate that I think we'll be going at, trying to knock out anywhere from 40 to 60 culverts a year based on the prioritization of that, and a combination of using contractors on the hard stuff and our staff on the easy stuff that we can do pretty quick and easy.
Well, you were saying the damage under DeSoto, or the ones that were failing under DeSoto, I'm assuming that's more on the west end of DeSoto. Is it just an age timeline thing?
No, they're most of them. I just actually had a map here and I misplaced it. I got all the ones that spread out. Their entire length. They're just they're from end to end. I can't tell you they're most on the west end.
So it's not just an age type thing. They're all over.
I mean, think of, the East End's. When was that built? Back in the 90s, 95?
Yeah, it's 30 years old.
30 years old. And it depends on the soil. They may have a little bit more acidic soil. So the deterioration rate might have accelerated a little bit on those culverts there, but it's a little bit flatter over there. So the culverts aren't quite as deep on the east end. They are deeper on the west end because you got more hillsides, and they do cost more to dig up.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a place down here on Castellon, not far from us, Castellon and Sierra, or Castellon and DeSoto. And that was what I was just thinking about. When I'm walking by and walking the dog, I look up and the road is, DeSoto is above Castellon. And there's a 24, 36-inch culvert that just literally comes out into space and drops the water, 3 to 5 feet or whatever. And I'm just thinking, that's a lot of doing. And that's you would hate for that much water to be going over the road.
Right. And that's how, that's how the Grand Canyon was built. It was the water
erosion
eroding away. And that's why we dredge, because, Mother Nature is constantly eating away at itself and winds up in our lakes, and along with the leaves. And we're out there pulling it back out after she puts it in.
Did you see Did I send you, or did you see the aerial drone footage I did of Lake Panada and dredging?
No, I haven't seen that yet. Where's that at?
It's actually on our webpage here at Hot Springs Village Inside Out on Facebook, I should say. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to Brad about this, and I thought, well, I'll fly the drone over and take a look. And I thought, I do not know if they will ever get this dredged. Oh my Lord. Well,
there's a lot out there, and I took the general manager, Mr. Kelly Hale, out there yesterday. He was inspecting the site and visiting with his staff, and we were challenged by the GM to find a way to repurpose the dredging materials. Right now we basically haul it to a hole, or we haul it to a local farmer, and those are all our costs for hauling. Surely, he challenged us, surely you can find somebody who wants that nutrient loaded material. When we tested it years ago, just the nutrients in that material is about 5 times the nutrient level of normal soil. So here you have soil that's already well fertilized. And the only problem is it's got some rocks and different size, shale pieces in it. And you'd have to filter that out. And boy, you got some really nice topsoil. So he's challenged us to find a vendor or a person that would be interested in that, to help lower that cost of hauling the material out of, it can go and get repurposed. They'll come, bring their trucks, we'll fill it up for them, and off it goes at no cost to the village. And they get the benefit of the material. Man, we're that's a great challenge from the GM, and we're going to figure that out. We are going to figure that out. By the way, there's piles of dirt down there at the boat ramp right now, and anybody's welcome to it. If they want to go down and get you a couple of buckets of some really good soil material, and you're willing to filter out the rocks in it, help yourself.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to stop you from picking up the tailings, right?
No, we're not going to stop that. We're not. The boat ramp's not closed except at the boat ramp. You can get to the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, let's okay. And we haven't discussed or any ballpark about this, but just take us down this road if we can eventually. Why would we not be able to maybe compost some of our own waste, mix it with this tailings, and basically make a potting soil? I mean, it would grow virtually anything, right?
It does. That stuff right there is already kind of decomposed, the lake dredge materials. But take our leaves, for example, that we haul to the City of Hot Springs composting facility, and they compost the POA leaves there. And you can go get some really nice soil from those compostings. We also have been over the years been trying to figure out how to take our sludge from our wastewater treatment plants, super high nutrients, very beneficial soil amenity, and how can we get that to a state that we could blend it with soil or sell it. It requires another dryer or a composting operation, and all those things are pretty heavy infrastructure investments up front, and require a lot of permitting from the state. So right now it's kind of cheaper for us to just haul it to the landfill, but that would be something nice to work towards someday, is for no additional operating costs, create a green, beneficial, repurposed waste material into something very useful.
Wow, what a great idea. Well, anyway, I didn't mean to get us off the topic. I appreciate it. Anything else, Randy? Did we miss it today, or are we done?
No, did we, Jason? Any parting shots? Anything you want to share?
No, that sounds great, man. Appreciate the time with you guys.
Okay, I just want to remind you how expensive that free headset's going to be, because we're going to come back to you again, buddy.
Yeah, this is yours.
No takebacks. It's yours, buddy.
Okay.
For Hot Springs Village Inside Out, I'm Dennis Simpson. He is Randy Cantrell, and thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by visiting our website, hsvinsideout.com, and tell a friend.